Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully, you're having a wonderful day so far. I got a good one for you today. It's November 8th question period, and there's not a lot of heavy hitters in here, so I'll let her run a little bit more, but a lot of interesting information is being passed around. So, if you'll like this video, give a like and subscribe. And with no further ado, let's get into it.
Questions orales. The Honourable for Sturgeon River Parkland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Liberals' cap on Canada's prosperity is a threat to the livelihood of all Canadians. All Canadians benefit from the support of our oil and gas sector in terms of jobs, investment, royalties, taxes, and perhaps most importantly, our dollar. This production cap will mean fewer jobs, less investment, less taxes to fund hospitals and schools, and higher inflation on everything as our dollar collapses against the U.S. Meanwhile, more jobs for American energy and steelworkers. Will this Liberal government finally put aside its obsession with grinding our energy sector down, unleash Canada's energy superpower, and scrap the cap?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Thanks, Madam Speaker. Let's stick to the facts. Canada's overall emissions are the lowest that they've been since 1997. That's the year that Connor McDavid was born, and they're going down thanks to climate action undertaken by this Liberal government. The Alberta oil sands are by far the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in Canada, and the Conservatives want to turn a blind eye to unlimited pollution in the oil sands. Madam Speaker, Alberta's far-right Premier Danielle Smith has spent $7 million on a misinformation campaign here in Ottawa to make polluting free again. That's $7 million that could have hired new teachers, new nurses, new doctors, but instead she's shilling for big oil and gas, and these Conservatives are helping her do it.
Good answer. Good answer.
The Honourable Member for Sturgeon River Parkland.
Well, Madam Speaker, speaking of misinformation from this Liberals, the Environment Commissioner confirmed that this Liberal government is not on track to meet its own emissions reduction targets. Canadians are paying the cost of this Liberal government's carbon tax, and it's all pain and no gain. Under the Conservative, Canada's economy grew, and emissions actually went down. But under these Liberals, Canada's GDP per capita is collapsing under the weight of tax hikes. The Liberals' real plan to hit their emissions targets is to collapse our economy and move more jobs south of the border. When will they have the courage to finally admit it and let Canadians decide in a carbon tax election?
See, this is what I'm worried about, is the Liberals are touting that our macro economy is booming better than ever while our emissions are decreasing. And it's the first time in forever. But they don't tell us why or how. They say it's because of all the carbon initiatives they're implementing, but I have a sneaking suspicion, because it's been 9 years, that it's not that. It's a recession incoming. Because when I look around, I see not as many people being able to drive as far as they could the next day. I see people not really buying as much. I see a lot of things happening where it would decrease the amount of emissions. And so I'm thinking that, or worried about, it's actually that a lot of people can't afford a lot of things that they were able to do freely, and that's why our emissions are going down. Sort of like when COVID first hit and the government locked everything down and nobody could go anywhere and emissions went super, super low. Are we doing the exact same thing but through a financial matter? I'd like to see the data on that before I start touting the Liberals on succeeding in everything, especially when they bring out a new word called macroeconomics.
Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, that is not true. Under the Harper government, pollution went up and up and up. In million metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions, 716, 721, 738, 753. Madam Speaker, under this government, we've brought them down under 750 million metric tons after it was rising under the Harper government to an average of under 700 million metric tons over the past 3 years. Under Conservative government, emissions were projected to be 41% higher by 2030. Conservatives want to abandon our climate commitments to future generations and make polluting free again, and that's not okay.
The Honourable Member for...
Like I said, it's interesting what austerity will do. Oh yeah, it'll bring down emissions, but it'll also bring down the livelihoods of people.
Sturgeon River Parkland.
Well, Madam Speaker, I'll tell you what's not okay. The Salvation Army released yet another devastating report on rising food costs. The Liberals' tax and spend policies are driving up costs for farmers who grow the food, truckers who ship the food, and sadly, for families who eat the food. With malnutrition on the rise and scurvy making a comeback, it's no wonder that Canadians are dissatisfied with the menu of higher taxes and inflationary spending offered by these Liberals. It's time to axe the tax so Canadians can afford to heat, eat, and get themselves to work. When will this NDP Liberal government let Canadians decide in a carbon tax election?
L'honorable secrétaire parlementaire, ministre des Familles, des Enfants et du Développement social.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We know that we are going through expensive times. This is exactly why we've made investment like the Canada Child Benefit. This means that we send parents over $7,000 per year to help with the cost of raising kids. Parents, when the Conservative leader talks about cuts, he's saying that it will cut these checks and make your family worse off. Is this what families need? No, I don't think so. We fight for Canadians, and we are there when times are tough.
See, the reason why I don't like this Canada Child Benefit plan, I used to not like it because I'm a single person without any kids, so I'm like, yeah, it's kind of a tax on us because you have to tax the people without kids for all of this money. Now, I'm a little bit over that because the amount of kids that are actually being birthed in Canada is going down immensely. But I don't understand why we're giving families money to have more children when in other countries what they do, which is way better than doing this, is they reduce the taxes when you have more kids. So what they do, say like Scandinavia, I think, does this, and a lot of more Eastern Europe countries, is when you have one kid, your taxes go down, say, 10%. And then when you have two kids, your taxes go down 25%. When you have three kids, your taxes go down to 30%. That's the way we should do it, because then it doesn't add to inflation. It actually would incentivize mothers to stay at home to take care of their kids, because then they wouldn't have to work so hard to pay for everything. And it would incentivize families to have more kids. So that would solve our birth rate problem. And it's way more economically friendly. But let's just keep on taxing people or printing money off, because that's the way we do it here in Canada.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Échemins-Lévis. Madam Speaker, new StatsCan data confirms that this government has failed. Per capita GDP has gone down over 8 of the last 9 quarters. People's quality of life is going down, whereas in the U.S., growth has reached 2.8%, much better. With an increase in the carbon tax and taxes on housing and capital gains, the government is once again putting downward pressure on per capita GDP, and this is affecting families. So my question is simple. Will the Prime Minister axe these tax increases which are making Canadians poorer? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. Madam Speaker, I think that the Conservatives have an inferiority complex towards the U.S. The IMF, Madam Speaker, has predicted that Canada will have stronger growth than the U.S. next year. And this morning, StatsCan revealed that we have created 15,000 jobs in the month of October. Madam Speaker, I hope my colleague understands that we will be there to ensure that the economy continues to grow. I am proud of being Canadian. Why aren't the Conservatives? The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Échemins-Lévis. Madam Speaker, The Economist has revealed that Canada is actually poorer than Alabama, the 4th poorest state in the U.S. But under this Liberal government, $450 billion investment dollars have left Canada and gone to the U.S., which has a faster growing economy than ours. So, will the Prime Minister slash taxes to support Canadian families? It's very simple. It's not hard to do, Madam Speaker. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, I don't think my colleague has seen the numbers that came out yesterday from Statistics Canada. Yesterday, StatsCan revealed that our growth is going to be even stronger than initially thought, and that's because of increased investment in Canada. Global investors are interested in investing in Canada because we offer stability, Madam Speaker, and that's what counts. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean.
Yeah, but StatsCan is a government organization, so it's really the government doing statistics on themselves. You have to take other non-globalistic private organizations to do all of these stats. Say the Taxpayers Federation's pretty good because they look into a lot of taxes and stuff like that, and do statistics on how that will affect the economy. And the Liberal there was talking about how the IMF said our economy will be higher than the US's in 2025, and I highly doubt that. I don't know when that information came out. The Liberals are very good at using old information and talking about that during question periods. So maybe that was back when Biden was going to be running, or like said he was going to be running again, or when Kamala Harris was in and all those green policies were still being touted in the States. But now that Trump has won, I can't imagine that, because like the media keeps saying, this is the drill baby drill president in the United States. And if they get a Republican House and they're shown or projected to have a Republican Senate, man, is their GDP just gonna explode. And their oil and gas sector is just gonna explode. Same with their mining. And what do we do here in Canada? We are a major mining, oil and gas, and what would you call it? Mineral-based, let's say, mineral and energy-based country. That's what we export. Well, and agriculture, but the United States has a lot of their own agriculture. But that's a lot of what we export to the world. We don't really export technology or medicine or culture. So if the United States explodes in oil and gas and in mining, what else do we have to export to them? Companies will be going down to the United States where there's less regulation, because as Guilbeault said himself, companies do not like regulation. So why wouldn't these big companies go down there? And when the MP is saying like, oh, a lot of these companies are coming to Canada, well, of course they are. We're giving them money to set up their businesses here instead of giving small businesses, which we should be doing, giving small businesses money to start up here in Canada. Small domestic businesses so they can run here in Canada. But we don't do that. We bring companies from Japan, from China, from the US, from Germany, from all these other places, and try to bring them here. I don't understand it, but let me know in the comments down below if you know why we do that.
Jean. Well, Madam Speaker, we should not expect to see Donald Trump water down his threats of mass deportation. In fact, yesterday in an interview, he said he would take action regardless of the cost of the American economy. So there's a high risk of a wave of migration towards our borders. And yet, yesterday, just as Trump was repeating his threats, here at committee, the Minister of Public Safety said that Quebecers' concerns are misplaced. And he said he wouldn't do anything unless there is a crisis. But is it really misplaced to want to avoid another Roxham Road crisis? The Honorable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for her question. As the Minister of Public Safety said yesterday, whether it be the RCMP or the CBSA, they have operational plans for all contingencies, and we can reassure this House that our borders will be protected. The Honourable Member. Well, while the federal government is still sleeping at the switch, people are organizing at the border, but not the government. Criminal human smuggler networks. They are already the ones pulling the strings at the borders, taking advantage of lack of RCMP resources. They were exploiting asylum seekers during the Roxham Road crisis, and today they are still exploiting people who are trying to migrate from Canada to the US. When Trump won the election, they got out the champagne because they are getting ready for a wave of migration. When will the federal government follow suit and start getting ready? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Now, of course, this government is always prepared to ensure that our borders are protected. The RCMP has operational plans in place to face any possible wave of migrants that might be arriving at the border. We will not be commenting on the operational plans of the RCMP or the CBSA because that could compromise safety.
Now, I don't know how many people we are short, or how many RCMP officers we are short at the border. I have heard that we are a lot short in the amount of people we need to patrol our whole border to make sure that nobody from the United States comes across. So that's one thing. How can you patrol your border really, really well when you don't have enough people to actually do that? Also, Roxham Road has just been notorious for that. Now, I used to criticize the RCMP a lot for what they did over COVID when pretty much there'd be taxis that just dropped people off at the crossing there, and then the RCMP set up a little hut there where all the, tell them what it is, illegals crossing over there would stay, and then the RCMP would literally be like carriers where they'd bring a bus down to the border and they'd load everybody up onto the bus, and the RCMP would help load all of their luggage into the bus and send them off to somewhere in Quebec or somewhere in Ontario, and that's how it was working. But apparently, from the people who I know who worked in the military and worked for the RCMP, they said a lot of it was the Liberals brought in laws which made it impossible to send them back. So they literally had to do that. So everything is riding on the Liberals right now to reverse all of those laws, to let the RCMP pretty much tell those people, turn around and go back to the United States. We're not even gonna send you to an airport. Turn around, go back. We're not letting you in. That's what we got to do. If you don't have your papers, if you're not an actual refugee, or you're not an actual immigrant, if you were just an illegal who is residing in the United States and now you're scared that Donald Trump is going to send you back home, don't come to Canada. We're going to turn you around and send you back to the United States. That's the way it should work. I don't understand why it doesn't work that way.
The Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Madam Speaker, the Salvation Army's annual report told us that 1 out of 4 parents are actually skipping meals so they can feed their children. That's 25%.
Just listening to this, Alexander Bullrice, sorry, I probably Bullrice. This guy is actually awesome from the NDP, because this is the second time I've heard a really, really amazing question from the NDP, and you don't really get very many of those because a lot of them are directed first at the Conservatives and then directed at the Liberals, and then the Liberals always direct it or say it's the Conservatives' fault. So this MP, usually I don't like the NDP. Awesome job, man. Great questions.
It's like we're living in Les Mis or in a Dickens novel. As a society, it's unacceptable that parents are skipping meals so they can feed their kids. And yet, what are the Liberals doing? They're meeting up with rich grocery chain CEOs and are begging them, well, please be nicer. Please lower prices. It's a joke. When will the Liberals finally take action and allow families to put food on the table? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Families, Children and Social Development. Madam Speaker, we are there for Canadian families with programs like $10 a day childcare, with the Canada Child Benefit, with dental care. These are all programs that will help families keep more money in their pocket and to face these difficult times, to help them put food on the table and to support their children's needs.
Vancouver Kingsway.
Madam Speaker.
I don't think they really understand that this $10 a day daycare and all that other stuff, it actually, there might be some short-term relief for some families, but not enough daycares actually do that because then they can't pay their workers and then they can't pay their bills, and then it's a spiral of the daycare shut down, and you're already seeing that in Ontario. And so it's the daycare's families that suffer. It's the the workers at that daycare that suffer because they're getting laid off. So you're just taking the suffering from one family and pushing it onto another. Why don't you just lower the taxes? Lower taxes. That's it. It's not hard concept. It's not difficult. And I can't believe I'm the one who has to say that when I'm just like an idiot who who watches news off of TV, and I can figure that out.
Speaker, no one should go hungry in Canada. But the Salvation Army reports 1 in 4 parents are skipping meals to save money to feed their kids. Meanwhile, grocery CEOs are gouging Canadians and raking in record profits. While the Liberals do nothing, Conservatives will let families go hungry because CEOs fund their election campaigns. It's time to cap essential food prices so everyone can put food on the table. Will the Liberals take action or continue to stick by greedy grocery giants like the Conservatives?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry.
Madam Speaker, our government provides hundreds of dollars a month tax-free to help families with the cost of raising a kid. We've also helped implement a national child care program saving families on average $800 a month, and are investing in feeding 400,000 more kids healthy meals at school. And I note that that member in particular worked on a national school food program for many years, advocating for that. Isn't he happy that our government is stepping up to invest over $1 billion over 5 years to feed 400,000 more kids across Canada?
The Honourable Member for Lakeland.
The NDP Liberals are not worth the cost to Canada. The worst decline in living standards in 4 decades, the worst drop in income per person in the G7, the worst economic growth in the OECD. What's their wacko plan now? Slap a job-killing oil and gas cap on Canada, make everything even more expensive, and drive out jobs, businesses, money, tech, and talent. Over 450 billion Canadian dollars have fled Canada, fled them to the U.S. When will the Liberals stop fueling the U.S. and help Canadians instead?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
So I just want to say, with price gouging and all those caps that the Liberals or the NDP say they want to incorporate, if price caps go on to this food, let's say, on fresh food, there's price caps. If inflation goes up and the cost of buying all of these, say, vegetables and stuff like that, if the price to produce them and the price to truck them increases because of the carbon tax or because of just inflation, or especially because of some bad harvest, a price cap would stop the price from that to go up. And that means all of these grocers would go bankrupt, pretty much. And if they don't go bankrupt, that means all the prices on medication, on non-grocery related stuff at the grocery store would massively increase. So you want to see the price of your Advil go through the roof? I think not. So this is the stuff that the NDP don't really think about. I assume they've never talked to farmers and they don't know what farmers think, because farmers would probably tell them that exact same thing. But let me down below what you think the government should do about the increase in food. Do you think I'm right with just lowering taxes, or are these price caps sort of a good idea? Let me know down below. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. I'm hoping by the end of the month to have 500 subscribers. And other than that, have a great day.